Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Much appreciated. This is our first group podcast in this new environment, so welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having us.
That's great. Buzzing for
great.
today. I know there'll be some rich conversation happening across these episodes, but really privileged to have you all here and grateful for it. We can get as deep as we want or not want, as philosophical as we need to. But let's talk some gymnastics stuff. Jack, I don't know much about your initial coaching journey, to be honest, so maybe that would be good to just fill me in with that. Like, how did you actually start coaching?
Okay, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So I didn't do gymnastics at an early age at all. I was a martial artist from the age of 5 until 16.
Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So I wasn't in gymnastics at all.
Wow.
I fell into gymnastics because of free running and parkour.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was literally finished with karate, didn't know what to do with myself, saw free running and parkour on YouTube.
Yeah.
And was like, yeah.
Bit of that.
Everything that I wasn't allowed to do.
Okay.
Immediately. So I started flipping down the beach.
Wow. Martial arts being so disciplined, and then you went off.
So contingent on discipline, and this was everything that you weren't allowed to do: the kicks, the flips, the.
You're a bit of a weapon then. You can flip as well as kill someone. So that's dangerous stuff.
I had no idea about that.
So that's it. Yeah, and then a friend of mine who lived in a local town said that there's a gym club.
Yeah.
We need to go and do their adult session, and cliches aside, fell in love with it immediately. They happened to be looking for coaches at the time. So said, if you guys want to continue training here for free, you can come and coach a few days a week. That's literally it.
And did you have a job at that point? Don't know what
Yes,
sort of age you
I
were.
did. Yeah, I was at school still, but I was working other jobs. So I started volunteering at the club.
Okay.
And then got to the point where I was like, actually, this could be something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
We did an apprenticeship scheme with them, which was like, they taught us about the admin side of the business, as well as coaching alongside of that.
Cool.
Was still working 2 other jobs at the time. So I did that for a year. Wow. And then when I can't keep doing this now. I love what we're doing here at the club, but I can't keep doing this this juggling act.
And then you committed.
What's the deal? Yeah, and then that was it.
I love that. And so, am I right in saying that when you were juggling different jobs, they were completely separate from sport?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Because Ross and I came from recreational race. We won't talk about who was better because we just don't.
No, I think we should.
Probably obvious.
We should talk about that.
It's pretty obvious.
Well,
I think we should.
Okay, Ross did always beat me, with the exception of one occasion, I think. Maybe.
Have you ever let him
Most of the
forget
time,
that
most of the time
occasion?
we're in a team.
Most
County team champs.
Yes.
Regional team champs. Yeah.
So we did like 1 hour a week, led to 2 hours a week, and then I was at college. I was going to be in IT because I was pretty proficient on computers and stuff. But like similar to me, didn't have any high performance background. Was going off in a totally different direction, and then came across gymnastics, and it's like that could just completely change my world. And eventually, I guess the same thing. Whilst I was at college, I made the decision I'm going to do gymnastics. Like, I don't rightly or wrongly, I don't need to do this other stuff now. Gymnastics is going to be the way forwards. And was it the same for you, or did you always know? Because obviously you were a little bit different in the sense of you started your coaching journey like a year before me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Also.
So it just boiled down to the fact that I was of that age and wanted a job, needed some pocket money, but didn't fancy doing a paper round. And at the time, I had really young cousins, and I was always really good with them. Mum said, good with the little ones, and that one you try a bit of coaching. So then I just volunteered for the class before ours. That's kind of how it started. Loved it. As we all have, fell in love with it deep.
Head first.
And then the squad stuff only came about because I was there all the time.
Of course.
And one day do you remember Kelly Hackman?
Yep.
She was running late for a class, traffic or something, so I stayed and helped with the conditioning side. And obviously in the rec class, you don't get a lot of conditions, just press-ups, maybe chin-ups, sit-ups. They did all this mad-looking stuff, crazy to me. And I was like, well, this is cool. And that's before they even got any equipment. So that sort of sparked my interest. And then I just did more and volunteered more. And but a bit like yourself, I kind of knew early on this was my calling.
Then obsessed.
And then never looked back. And as we've said before, many a times when we've spoken, like just watching stuff on YouTube, VHSs, everything that we could get our hands on.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have some level of high performance in the club on the women's side, and the men were been pretty prolific at working at that time. So that was quite inspirational.
We fell in with mentorship, which was important for us, wasn't it? But I think what's interesting, and I'll come to you in a bit because you are the exception in this discussion, of course.
You've done a bit of gymnastics, haven't you?
But like 1 or 2 hours a week for us and nothing for you. We had no knowledge of high performance. I didn't even know what a backward giant and a forward giant was. So it was like very limited. And we're often asked, or the question is often posed, do you have to have been an elite elite participant or gymnast in order to coach at that level? And there's so many examples of people right at the top of the game. Kerben as well is another one. He didn't come from a gymnastics background whatsoever, and he's led 2 national teams already. And I think it's really interesting. I actually feel it's one of my competitive advantages, if I've got any, in the sense of, you've got to stop laughing at this stuff.
No, I'm laughing with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. That makes me feel better. In the sense of, like, I had a blank canvas coming into coaching, so I had no preconceived ideas about how coaching should be, what technique should be. I think I'm absolutely not saying everybody, but I think if you've come from a background of being coached and doing things a certain way, that can actually maybe slightly hold you back in the sense of you might not have as much of an open mind to new things, because it might be like, well, this is the way I did it.
Yeah, I agree.
And so sometimes I think having a completely blank canvas and coming into the sport curious then gives you the opportunity to go, well, I'm just here to learn. I don't know anything. I've got no bias towards technique or coaching styles or whatever. So just like, you become more of a sponge in some cases. And I think that was certainly the case for me.
For all 3 of you, do you believe that continues to be a motivation?
What, having not come from that background?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but I think also, like, we were obsessed. I can't speak for yourself, Jack, and perhaps this is the case, but Ross and I worked together for many years. We were obsessed. Like, you couldn't get us out the gym, and even rec. Like, Ross was in the gym coaching rec for 25 hours a week and doing his squad on top of that, like, more so than me. But I would have been at there, and we would have done a lot of that voluntarily. You just could not get us out the gym.
Preschool, adults.
And I think that if we were higher level athletes that had spent 15, 20, 25, 30 hours a week in the gym, I don't think we would have had that desire to still be in that environment that much.
Yeah. So
we coming in fresh, I think, was key. It's different now. We've been in this for 20 odd years or whatever. And I don't feel like I've got a need to prove myself because I wasn't an athlete, for example. But I do enjoy the fact that I came from literally doing a headstand with flexed feet and like.
Can you still do a headstand?
I don't know, mate, but probably not. But I think
where you are now.
But it's a nice example for people as well. It's just
Oh God, yeah.
But what I will say, and I'm happy to say this for myself and on behalf of Ross, is like an enormous amount of self-development and mentorship and obsession. Yeah. Sometimes borderline unhealthy obsession with learning. Yeah. Was the only way that we were able to go from actually not knowing anything at all to getting to the level that we coach at now.
I think it's helped me in as much as it's been easier to look up and aspire up the ladder or the chain of learning and coaching and whatnot. Whereas I think sometimes if you've hit a pinnacle of some degree, there's always an element of looking down. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way or not, but to connect with someone that's doing preschool or recreational or GFA, I think they call it, when you've been at the top for so long, is probably a little bit harder. Yeah. That's not to say that individuals can't connect on that level, but for me, it's easy to go, oh, that's the next step. Or I'm excited to try and do this. Or it was just all so new all the time for so long. That was really motivational and inspiring.
Kept it exciting.
Yeah. I mean, learning to spot stuff for the first time.
Literally, I was about to say, like, everything was new. Everything was fun, and it was like I'd see a prep and I'd be like so excited. I've never seen that before. Of course I've never seen it before. I've never seen anything before. So like everything was just exciting. We used to we proper geeked out. Ross and I, we wrote everything down. Like he would come over to mine. We'd sit down and watch the Olympics when we back to back from Athens, which was kind of current around that sort of time. It was that really exciting stage of learning, which I think that you can't force that. You're either really excited about learning and being an amateur, or you're not. And I actually believe that one of the most enjoyable parts of the journey is actually enjoying learning. So, and I'm conscious I've done this myself as well, but I've been in such a rush to get to the next level. But actually, it sounds very cliche, but you do have to enjoy the process, because it's the process of the learning bit which is actually the fun bit, I think. It's not necessarily the end result of, oh, now I've learnt that, I've got this result or this gymnast to this level. Okay, that is great. I actually just love, even now, going to a country and seeing something and go, oh my God, that is amazing. Or having a paradigm shift, thinking about something quite differently it's being obsessed with learning. And I think you've either got that or you haven't. You can't encourage people or force people to enjoy learning. And maybe if they haven't got that, it's not that they don't like learning, it's maybe that the subject of a topic doesn't give them the same energy that we get from gymnastics. Maybe it's going to be something completely different
Finding that thing.
in sport, out of sport. You know, it's finding that thing that people connect with.
Yeah, 100%.
So you are different, of course, because you come from a very high level performance background, being an international athlete and, you know, excelling at the highest levels. So how did your transition feel going into coaching? And do you relate to what we've talked about in the sense of by being in the gym so much, maybe that desire to be in the gym all the time isn't so strong?
I think for me as an individual, I really love the sport at all levels.
Yeah.
And I love what the sport can do for people, whether that's within coaching or for the athletes. So that's where I find my passion. So yeah.
And would you say there was a step in there that you were burnt out at all? Like you needed a break just to kind of reconnect and make sure that passion was still lit?
I think my passion was in coaching.
Yeah.
So whether that was in what I do now within fitness or strength and conditioning or gymnastics, it wasn't actually within gymnastics itself.
Okay.
So I just really enjoyed coaching.
Helping people?
Yeah, helping people, yeah. And helping people develop, helping people learn.
I've been fortunate enough to work with you quite closely over a number of years, and you're an incredible people person, and that really comes across in the coaching. Anyone that works with Reiss in the club, it's obvious that they're comfortable almost instantly. You've got that about you, and I don't know whether that comes from just you as the person or because you have that advantage of doing everything. You're so relaxed in the gym environment that very much comes across in the people that you teach as well.
Yeah. I think with my experiences as well, and knowing that, especially in gymnastics, it is a long game. I did it for such a long time.
Yeah.
I can have that understanding and empathy of when the kids are maybe struggling with a skill or something, that I'm really happy to say it's okay. Like, it's not about now, it's about in the future. So I don't feel like I have that pressure of, we have to get it for this competition, we have to get it for this. I see
You can
the long...
actually say that, can't you?
Yeah, I can see the long game. Yeah, 100%.
I can. You are right now.
Yeah.
I've done it.
And I can really...
Trust me.
Yeah, really relate to like, okay, yeah, it might not be going so well for you now, Monday, for example, but you'll feel completely different on Friday compared to how you're going to feel in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years' time. So I feel like I can connect on that level.
And then that would be an advantage that you have over individuals like us, which whilst we understand the philosophies of being patient because we've worked at this level, etc., you've got first-hand experience of how some of that stuff feels, which is something that we will never have. Even
I
though
go back
Ross did beat me
to
at county
what
level.
you said about like what motivates us, and I think you hit the nail on the head by saying it's not really motivation anymore. It's obsession, probably, for lack of a better term. Have you ever felt as though like you're motivated to do this, or is it just because you've always done it? You don't know any different?
I think my obsession is with helping. And again, like I said, I don't think it's gymnastics. I think it's just helping
Generally.
in general.
Yeah.
So my vehicle for that was gymnastics.
Love that. Do you remember when you came to visit my club?
Oh, put me on the spot.
Did I say the
there.
club?
Yeah.
Was that all right? It was Dover Gymnastics Club. It was my first ever club.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was like, I don't think I was even 20 years old yet. Really early days. And you came in.
Do you remember what year that was? No? Okay.
No, I got pictures somewhere, man.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you
Wow.
came in and like you did some coaching with us.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you did some like tumbling, and I think like maybe you did like a full twist, and I was like, oh my God, unreal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This was like early days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I'll be honest, I don't remember.
I didn't know if you remember.
No,
You did
no,
like
a lot of
club
things
visits
like
and
that.
stuff,
Yeah,
didn't you? So yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, mate, yeah.
Learned a lot about you
We're
today.
talking like 50 years ago, mate.
Inspire a generation.
That's it.
You did like genuinely, like I think you and I spoke briefly, and I was in awe. I was like, this is cool. Like, there are
I find
levels
that
to
so
this,
interesting
like-
because we've had those conversations before, and I find that so interesting because it's like I'm just a normal person.
Yeah.
It was everything you just said, Ross. It was like the gravity of your personality and the way that you just came in. Everyone was like
Aura.
The aura. 100%.
Yeah. On a serious note, though, people, I think that some people really do have that sense of aura. I think one of the most important qualities that you need to have as a coach is presence. I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently in some of the mentoring I've been doing. because I found that you've got great coaches that are really quite quiet. They're not loud, but they have a really strong presence still, despite the fact that they're not loud. And I think often we think that the leading coaches are going to be the ones that are loud and yes, they have presence, but they're also like quite controlling in an environment. It's just, you know, there's so much evidence to suggest that that's not always the case. You know, you can have great coaches that we all know them that have got that much energy in their presences in that way. But I know some fantastic coaches who are the quietest in the room, but they still have like the Yoda effect. They've still got that aura about them that when they talk, you want to listen and you're drawn to them.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the presence side of stuff, because it's something I've been trying to really work on recently with my mentor, Craig. He's helped me try and understand it a bit better, because when I'm outside the club, I feel I've got that youthful obsession, fun-loving. My presence is there, and I'm able to share that, and I think people can feed off of that. But in my club, sometimes I get bogged down with the day-to-day running of things that have to be done, and I find it hard to separate those two things. So my presence isn't what the children or work colleagues deserve from me in that moment. So I've tried to work around making sure that I can deliver the presence that they own.
That middle ground is in between the two.
I think a lot of club owners and like leaders, like you're obviously a head coach, I think would relate to that. Is that a lot of people, I mean, part of the work I do obviously with the Inner Circle program and some of my clients is that they are managing and leading a club. They've done that because they wanted more control, and they feel like they'd be able to now, I can do what I want. It's my program stuff. And then they find, because they're the decision makers, they're being pulled in so many different directions. It dilutes their effectiveness as a coach. And if coaching was what they wanted control of, they were better off just being a coach.
One of the best examples I found myself in recently is my delivery. There's a particular situation a little while ago. I did a day on a club camp and just helped this individual. She was looking to try and do an element on bars. She was a little bit stressed. The coach had explained to me she was, worried because it was very inconsistent. And I just took a moment to talk to this, ultimately a stranger, a young lady. But she really opened up to me, and she explained what she was concerned about, and she described the feelings that she was experiencing that were distracting her. And I got goosebumpy about it, because I was like, I don't know this child, but she's opened up to me, and I was able to share that with the coach and tie it all together.
Vulnerability
and it made
there.
and it made it really, really productive session. Went back to my club, and I'm often trying to do the same with the girls that I work with in the club, but not always getting the same response. And one Saturday, the girls, if they could vlog their control comp this particular day, and they left the phone running. And when I was going through my phone to delete stuff from memory, memory was full. I just caught a glimpse of myself. It wasn't the camera on, but it was the audio. And someone was doing something on bars, and what I said was all right. And what I mean by that was everything I was saying was correct. It was encouraging. It was all the right bits. But the delivery was rushed. It didn't have any empathy behind it. It was bland. But then I'd obviously clocked that I was
doing that,
and I switched within it. And because there was no video, I was forced to listen to myself. And that was my change in being present. I was distracted in my initial part of that feedback, which was dull, not engaging. But by the end of it, and my mentor described to me, all you've gone from being there is you were teaching that individual and telling. And within that 30 seconds, 40 seconds of feedback, you've gone to going with her, your arms around her. And that's the presence I'm trying to look for all the time. And that's the bit I was going on about what people deserve and should have from me. But it's being present enough to deliver the presence.
Self-awareness.
That's an amazing bit
absolutely.
of self-reflection you've done there.
Because most people wouldn't you wouldn't have done that, it's particularly in the moment on the spot, for you to go actually consciously, how well am I delivering here? And I wonder if we fall into that trap because we spend so much time with the same people. Like that particular athlete, if you're with them for like 25 hours a week, it's hard work to go, right, I need to deliver this conversation in an engaging way and with empathy and this, that and the other.
Keep the energy high.
Because,
every single time.
Do you know
what it makes me wonder is if you were, or if we were mic'd up and we knew that this information was going out to an audience that didn't necessarily fit into that tiny little circle, would you immediately be like...
Well, you'd be more conscious. And
definitely.
If I'm honest, I've said this before, I think that's the future of coaching. I think we will end up wearing cameras, body cameras, and mic'd up. I think.
Well,
that is the future.
we've got cameras all over the gym, and from day one, the first ever gym that I was at, we had one-way glass.
Right?
Was it two-way glass? One-way glass. So the parents could see in, but we couldn't see out.
Yeah.
So I just had to assume at all times that someone was watching me, which typically they were, because they were allowed to sit there and watch for as long as they want. I always had that in the back of my mind. Yeah. And that's ingrained.
I quite like the idea of being mic'd up.
Yeah.
I've got no issue. I've done it a few times at Lillishall for courses or just a general coaching session.
Yeah.
But where I worry that it would go too far is there's certain ages or certain characters that if you deliver yourself too robotic or too perfectly, it creates a disconnect.
Yeah.
And then once the authenticity's gone, then your relationship with that individual, and I'll speak on experience because I'm not connected with everyone as well as I should have done or could have done in that moment. But there's the risk of a barrier. And that scares me a little bit.
Because being a performer as opposed to just connecting on a human level.
But like I say, I've not always mastered it, but one of my tools in my toolbox is creating a relationship with someone that's trusting and a shared vision and all of those kind of things. And I just worry if
some energy will probably be a bit lower or a bit higher.
Yeah. Well, we're human, aren't we?
Yeah.
I wonder what 20-year-old Ross would have done in that situation, or how 20-year-old Ross would have coached in that particular situation. Because it sounds like you were asking searching questions as well to the individual that you mentioned beforehand about someone opening up to you.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I often try and think, what would I have done with my 2-hour Monday advanced rec group from Woking that I used to teach from age 16 to 18. And it was just all about, not just fun, but try it, give it a go, give it
Encouragement.
And we've often said that there's an element of analysis paralysis, or too much knowledge it stops you from actually being able to deliver what you're trying to do. So I do try and go back to a lot of that simpler stuff, but then I also find, not to diverse too much, but my passion often gets in the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes I might numb that too much and I get the monotone kind of bits, or it just all comes out too quick, too fast, too They're finding that line or walking that tightropes.
That comes with experience though, right? And like Nick said, 20-year-old Ross would be asking different questions to the Ross now. And that's
or maybe not asking questions at all. I certainly don't think I was. I mean, I think it's a maturity of coaching, isn't it, that you get to that stage.
Everything was fine all the time back then.
Well, you're telling, it's teaching and telling, do this, do that.
So then they'll go do it.
Yeah. Why did you do it?
I told you what to do.
Definitely the evolution of a coach. Short interruption. If you're a head coach, club owner, manager, or leader, check out our high performance health check for a free insight into how well your club's operating within our 6-category framework. Head to nickruddock.com/health check to take our 10-minute assessment. We'll send you the results straight to your inbox. Back to the episode.
Well, I'll give you a piece, and it's a piece that I've spoken to a few people about, and it's a term that I phrased a little while ago, having done some ethical work with a think tank group through British Gymnastics, but with a couple of other individuals. And can passion be your poison?
Oh, that's an interesting question. And can passion be your poison? To go a bit deeper on that?
For example, in past, sometimes when I've coached, I've not meant for it to be received in a way that it may have been received, but it always come from a real passionate, deep love for, one, the sport, but also that individual achieving what I believe they could achieve. But within that passion, sometimes your vision is blurred from what is actually maybe possible. It's my super strength, but it's also there's a line here that it can flip either way. So I'm very conscious of, again, I mentioned working with a mentor earlier, and when he said, when I come and see you coach, like, what will I see? I said, well, I'm passionate and I'm this and I'm that. And when he actually come to watch, he goes, it's interesting you mentioned passion, because I thought you'd be, as you touched on earlier, I thought it'd be high flying, like this, that energy, shouting. And I was like, no, I do try and keep a cap on it.
Dial it
quite
down.
Controlled for the very reason that I wouldn't want it to boil over. But at the same time, I don't want to be so damp that I'm just dull and...
I think it's a dial, right? It's not like you're not one or the other. And I think different individuals, different environments need different levels on
That's
the
a nice
dial.
analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't keep it at maximum capacity
Yeah,
all
like-
the time because it's impossible.
Yeah.
But you definitely can't let it drop below
A certain level. Yeah.
So where are your parameters on that dial? And
And that can change within a day, within an hour, within apparatus.
Definitely.
Because there'll be some apparatus where,
you might have to.
you might have to dial it up depending on the skills that they're doing, or whereas other apparatus might have to be a little bit more chilled.
Chill, calm.
But that also doesn't mean you're not passionate if you're chilled.
No, it's got nothing.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it means you're considered.
Yeah.
You know, your emotional regulation or emotional intelligence. I don't know if you've seen the equalizer model that I should
Yeah,
talk
it's
about.
exactly
It's
that,
exactly that. It's been able to dial certain things up in different circumstances.
And like you said, there are some coaches out there with some real gravitas that are so chill.
Yeah.
So relaxed.
Yeah.
Like all the time to the point where you go,
And I think,
right?
yeah, I think that's a super strength for some coaches is their ability to stay quite neutral with their emotions,
Yeah.
like not getting too excited, but also not getting too, when things aren't going well, not being too dramatic about it. And I think the coach needs to be consistent so that the athlete, it will bring the athlete in.
Yeah.
I've seen examples where coaches get like really overexcited, like they have a massive competition, they do well, and all of a sudden you just gone crazy with excitement and you're bigging up the gymnast, but too much. You're telling them, right, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. And you lose that level of like, well, actually, let's just keep things on a middle ground. Like, don't get me wrong, we're going to celebrate. Celebration's important here, but let's put things into perspective. One competition, okay, we don't need to go crazy. One injury, one mistake in competition, we don't need to go crazy. Let's just stay consistent because the athlete needs to know who they're going to be coached by that day.
Yeah.
If they're walking into the gym knowing Jackal or Hyde, who am I going to get today?
God, terrifying.
Yeah, that can be really difficult.
You posted something recently, Reese, about consistency over intensity, which I'm personally a huge advocate of, and I know you've spoken on this a lot.
Yeah.
You can't work at maximum capacity all the time and not have a 4.
For sure.
And that's us, that's the gymnast, that's
It's everybody.
It's everything.
We're humans, aren't we? Not robots.
consistency over intensity. I mean, I'm not anti-intensity at all.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
But there's a time and a place, not, like you said, whenever, wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge.
I want to come back to what you mentioned earlier about it was linked into the bit about the passion being the poison, but also analysis paralysis. Because, and I know we've talked about this before, but there's that beautiful part of coaching when you don't really know. You don't know everything. Of course, we never do. But the naivety, the magic in the naivety, and that I miss those days when you're not overthinking because you don't know enough.
Yeah.
And so you just do something and it works. And so I think that sometimes coaches that have got less experience have an advantage because they'll just basically keep it so simple. Because they don't bog down, because they don't have the knowledge to make it more complex.
And to tie that into the celebration part as well, it's far easier to celebrate either more frequently or with more vigour when you don't know as much because it's exciting. And it's there. Whereas actually at the moment, because I've got everything planned down to the nth degree over a cycle, over 2 cycles, maybe even 3 cycles, that's a really small part. Well, that's one stepping stone out of 100. It's still a milestone. I should celebrate it more. But the naive Ross or the 20-year-old Ross, he's throwing a party. There's party poppers going. There's all sorts. I'm throwing foam around the gym. You know.
The flip side of that is the embarrassment that comes with it as well. Do you know how many times in my coaching career I've been embarrassed because I didn't know something that someone would have known if they were in the sport since they were a kid. And I've gone like, but like I'm no longer embarrassed by anything. Because of the amount of embarrassment that I had in the building. Nothing. I've been there so many times where I've gone,
It's like we're often just tempted to over engineer things because it's I think what we just subconsciously believe is the right thing to do. Like complexity is going to be important here. Like let's engineer this. It's a sign of our intelligence. And a classic example would be if you're doing like 5 or 6, like trying to get these drills perfect, and the kid can't do the skill. Whereas actually a less experienced coach, a bit more naive, would just say, do the skill.
Give it a go.
And they give it a go. And then all of a sudden they can actually do the skill. And you're like, I've just been doing all this work over here. And you just...
what I do like... So what's different between... Keep referring to the 20-year-old Ross, but what I do like now compared to compared to 20-year-old Ross is the ability to do exactly that within a group with 2 kids that need the ability to just try, learn from experience, but you've got the kids that are like Play-Doh that need the moulding, and then you've got the robotic ones that need some sort of loosening up within that. Whereas young naive Ross would have just approached it all one blanket thing, which might have suited one or the other. But now the thing that you get with maturity and a little bit of knowledge and confidence is trusting that, no, actually, I'm going to go down this pathway or this route with this individual because that's what they need. I'm not going to blanket it across everyone because that's easy to do. No, I'm going to specify this, and this to make it work for everyone and trust that's going to get us where we all need to go. That's definitely one advantage of being 20 years older than 20-year-old Ross.
It's a system, isn't it? You developed a system rather than just having that one kid that it worked for, but leaving, 10 of them behind because it didn't work for them. That's not a successful program. That's just you getting lucky with that one kid.
True.
As opposed to rotating this periodically through lots of different athletes and it working, not every time, it's probably impossible every time, but
You give yourself more opportunity for it to work.
yeah, you've seen it, you know it, yeah. We've been there. I consider myself like a really good vault coach because I had a group of girls that were just good on vault, and then the next lot that I took weren't. No, it wasn't me at all. Super good at vault, and I was like, brilliant, yeah, I must be so good. That's not a thing.
It's interesting what we deem success to be, because there's lots of situations. If you could have an Olympic athlete, but if you've had 15, 20 kids that are broken on the way or had just as much talent but didn't make it, like, is 1 out of 20 a good success ratio?
Good ratio, yeah.
So do you, but we're put on a pedestal, so we go, well, I've got an Olympian.
Also, the answer is yes as well, isn't it? No.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yes. And that's it. It's just
You
understanding.
still produced an Olympian. That's spectacular. But also, what about the... Yeah.
It's the context matters, I think, in everything in coaching, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe as a general rule, maybe as a community, we need to think carefully about what success really does look like. Some of the greatest coaches I know have got they'll never get anywhere near high performance standard. They have no intention to, but they are what I would deem to be world class coaches. Don't coach at a world class level.
Yeah.
But their delivery, their engagement, their interest,
Just utterly phenomenal.
kids coming back for more, their communication style, empathy, like you name it. One of the best coaches, examples of coaching I ever saw was someone coaching preschool. And I was like, the skill that it needs, it's a different skill, but the skill that is needed to coach and communicate with those kids at that level, class control, safety. I was in awe. I just sat watching for half an hour and I was like, I'm watching world-class coaching take place. But this coach is never going to coach at high performance level, but doesn't matter.
But that's like separating gymnastics coaching and coaching.
And coaching,
right? Like two separate things
definitely
in some ways.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, you can be a world-class coach.
Yeah.
Just coaching in general, but then coaching the sport to a high level is something that's very different.
I think I came out of one of your first gym cons with a completely different view on coaching. And it was when you had the sprint guy, Jonas, and he did his lecture on sprinting, but within that delivered himself in a way and held himself in a way. I was like, I could have you coach a 4-hour gymnastics session. You don't know anything about gymnastics, but because you're a great coach, you would analyse, you would feedback, you would assess, all those things. You'd motivate, you'd be inspiring, all those wonderful things. But you wouldn't have a clue about gymnastics. And I come away from that thinking, what is a good coach? And I was so much in the gymnastics bubble at that time that it just light bulb moment.
In that scenario, to me, in my eyes, he's coached you. So by you watching, looking, being inspired and thinking about these questions and making you think wider, maybe, that's coaching to me.
Yeah, that's
I
a
think
form
so.
of coaching right there, yeah.
Soft skills, which we all know. Again, this stuff's very cliche. And 20-year-old Nick and Ross would have been falling asleep by it, because if someone was saying, this is really
it's not exciting enough,
No, we were obsessed with spotting and like learning a new prep.
The first thing that I did was glorified spotter for a while, but I loved it.
Literally, we're probably all in the same boat here. I don't know about you, because again,
I learnt from Ross, so I was quite good at spotting.
But we spotted. That's pretty much what we did 80% of the time.
Absolutely.
And we were very good at it.
Yeah.
My shoulder is absolutely
I'm feeling
broken
it now.
But what I find crazy is I didn't know what I was spotting. Didn't necessarily understand what I was spotting
And the technique
at
and things.
all, but did it. And I was from a spotting perspective, and if I think about it with coaching now, I was probably 5-6 years ahead from a spotting perspective from where I was understanding. I still remember being on a platform and getting confused what way someone turned it in a blind. Fudge, she's gone that way. I was meant to spot it this way. But the next breath, running over to the other bar and spotting a Ginger, a Kachev, and a double front, jumping off with them and landing like... And I was barely doing round off back flicks myself in the adult session. Like, it was nuts.
Do you guys think that having that advantage in spotting those types of skills before having the knowledge to be able to teach those skills, let's say, helped you understand the skills better when teaching them?
For me, there's like a two-pronged look at that, and yes would be one side of that, because I had the confidence to carry an individual through a skill, work it out on the fly with them a lot of the time. A lot of like questions and probing, how did that feel? I'm thinking it should be like this, does it feel like that? But equally, no, because I relied on my spotting for way too long, way too much, and inadvertently, and I didn't realise until a lot older, I was getting satisfaction from someone wanting me to spot them.
Okay.
That want of need and reliance was it's probably a bit of an ego thing, even to a certain degree, and I'm really glad that I've stepped away from that, but can be that if that's what's required. So yes and no.
That requires a middle ground, definitely. Over spotting. Been there.
I can relate to that. I mean, and I can relate to that in terms of ego, wanting to feel needed, wanting to be the competent spotter. Getting your ego box ticked by an athlete that's like, oh, I only want Nick to help me. I used to love that. Not knowing how damaging that actually was. How like that's really poor coaching. So
we'd have we'd teach the same group on a Monday night, and half the group would only want me to spot them, and half the group would only want Nick to spot them.
Really?
And we were okay with that at the time. But looking back now, that's
But does it also give you the sense of like a really productive session because you've done nothing but work the whole time? But actually, you may have only seen little Susie actually twice because the group are only coming to you. And you're, brilliant, I'm sweating and awesome session. Man, I didn't do anything.
In terms of productivity, work done.
You did. Loads.
See, I find that interesting because I came from the other side of being able to do the skill. Maybe not all of the skills, but so I had to learn to understand it the other way because I would have done those skills maybe earlier in my career. Let's say like a Ginger, for example. I did that when I was like 14, let's say. But we're helping girls that are doing it at like whatever age. So me having to think back to how it felt and then trying to get hands to do the same, the thing that they need me to do. So it was like, that was quite interesting for me when I was learning to
Goes back to your original question, wasn't it? Do you have to have been there and done it?
Yeah.
And the answer is no, but like, how can you possibly understand and teach a skill if you've not done it? Well, it's because I've read every book, and I'm not exaggerating. I've listened to every podcast, every YouTube video, obsessed with it, and still am.
And I think I feel really old saying this. I'm only 37, right? But when we first started coaching,
Didn't have any of that.
YouTube didn't exist, Facebook didn't exist, Instagram didn't exist, and I really loved that time because all I did was sat in the corner with a notepad and pen, and I just was obsessed with watching. And for whatever reason, I was able to connect and understand and. When watching a skill, I just was able to understand how gymnastics worked. So that handstand leads to those lines and that flexibility, and that's what they need. And I was just able to address that and pick it up, which was lovely.
You had no choice as well. It was either that or nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you've said in the past, you have to reach out.
But I think there's not enough people just want to sit in the corner and just sit in the corner and observe. Just watch. And like put your phone down. Don't film it. Don't upload it onto social media. Just sit and watch and just be really present with what's going on. And we did so much of that. And obviously our apprenticeships, whether they're in the UK or I did a lot of mine obviously in the US with some great coaches, was like just sat in the corner, no camera, and just watch. Or I was the irritating guy, and I still am, that stands next to someone and asks questions at really awkward times when you're not supposed to be. I'm the guy that gets in the way. Why? I can't stop being curious. It's just me.
That's a superpower though.
Well, I think so.
That's a superpower.
There's a line. I've probably crossed it a few times, but like through passion again and through interests and just wanting to.
But in a sport like ours, it will never end either.
No,
it will never stop. There's always something more to be curious about.
It's telling you something if it does stop, I believe.
And
we probably always all walked a close, fine line of highs and lows. But if that curiosity does die out, or that intrigue to, can we do this better?
At base level, do you just love
then I think that tells
gymnastics?
us. Yeah.
It's so cool.
We chatted about yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a love for the sport, but I genuinely just love teaching gymnastics.
No matter
the
what it
process
is.
of teaching something, someone learning something. One of my principles is, if they deserve to learn it, I'll give them all and that could be a forward role. But you will get what you deserve if you want to learn.
You get the same energy from me as if it was a catch-up or something.
Yeah,
if they're
absolutely.
that elated by achieving the skill, I'm there with them.
And
So
I'm pleased that I've worked out that that's my passion, because I'd like to think that won't die out, because it's not relying on a result or an individual, and I can teach. Really thinking about it, you can teach in any gym club, any setting, anywhere, if you've got enough about. The times that we've gone to schools and other bits and bobs, and you've turned up, there's a bench and one map, you make something work. Just love it.
So this might be a bit unique to me, but I also had the next achievement that I wanted to get. So I remember being back at that first club and seeing a high performance coach at the time spot a double back, and it was
just thinking in my head,
mythical.
It was a massive milestone for us, wasn't it?
It's like an achievement in a video game that you just can't wait to be there doing that.
What is it about spotting a double back?
I don't know, it's pretty spectacular.
I think it's the jump of the risk of well, it's now a multiple somersault. There is an element of risk involved with this, and
how
it's
smooth it is.
and it's that next level of going. If I can do that, then I've got good control. It feels like a really.
I also think it's the one skill that's used as the leveling up of spotting.
Yeah, okay.
I'd
agree.
It's
That's
a milestone.
Because
because you could reference something on bars, but there's multiple releases you can support. There's multiple close bars with turns you can support. Vault ultimately is a couple of volts. Do you spot off the table? Don't you? Beam, you don't go near spotting 9 times out of 10. So it's that one thing on the piece, and that actually their life is in your hands for the first time. And
I think as well, as I guess at some point when you feel like that, you can then measure yourself against other coaches, because you're all spotting it. Because I remember going to international competitions and seeing the coaches spot the girls, and we'd be like, yeah, good. That's good spot.
Yeah, that's a good coach.
Oh, he missed that. He missed her there. He walked it off, but he missed her.
You do it with your eyes closed now, because it's just something that you do daily, and we've pitched and caught doubles and things beyond that. But that's when you're looking back at what you used to think was spectacular, and now it's just part of the daily. That's so exciting.
I'm just reflecting on some spotting fails. I know it's nice to think about all the fun stuff and the good stuff and the big stuff and the exciting stuff, but my God,
I've said to so many of the girls that I've worked with for a long time, have I ever dropped you? And one of them the other day was like, and I went, oh yeah, I didn't know. It's not many. I don't think it's many. But
even the other day, it wasn't necessarily a spotting thing, but I'll shout out to Georgia May, because I failed on my pad pushing. And I do pride myself a little bit on my pad pushing. It can go in and go out really, really quick, but the setup was a bit odd, and it looked really good from where I was, and I pulled the pad out, and she landed on the bar.
Oh, God. I mean, we've all done it. And you're like, we have all done it.
We were very fortunate to laugh about it and stuff. And I did redeem myself. But you're right.
Do you feel as though you need that every now and then as well, though?
I wouldn't say I need it, because I feel awful when it happens, and I don't want that feeling. But there is the odd thing that makes me check, because so many things become autonomous. So that's why I'm really fortunate that I am able to, and I do go out my club a lot, because I touch in with other people's athletes and support them and help the coaches, and I have to think a lot about that, because they do it differently.
Keeps you sharp.
So exactly, because I can almost do certain things with certain kids in the club, because I know exactly how they're going to move, bar the odd one mistake that they might make, but tends to be your reactions are quick enough, because you've still got an anticipation of how it might be. But that element of thinking, which I find odd sometimes, because when you have to suddenly think about something, it becomes a bit slower and a bit more awkward.
And thinking about walking, and all of a sudden
I was going to say, I did this on the way here. When you think about how to drive,
oh mate, don't say that. You're like, which button? I did that yesterday. Which button is it on the limiter? And then I was just like,
but I had another really strange moment once. A southeast, when I used to work at Woking, and it was at a competition, and Speaking about the move, actually, I watched Yuri spot a souk off the table, and he kind of put it down like a double back. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Right.
Really, really different. And then our gymnast went, and my brain went, and I just put her down like a double back. But I didn't know how it happened because I've never done that before. I didn't tell myself to do it. And the next one came and I did it again. I was like, what's happening?
You just made like a direct connection between what you saw and
it was really strange. And I managed to, but then I thought about how I needed to do it and I went back. But it was that thinking of what you do, which is always automatic, was really bizarre. Really bizarre.
I mean, spotting is a skill, isn't it? I mean, just like anything else. It's just think you need.
But I think
practice. You need to, like we break down a skill for a gymnast. There are progressions of everything.
Yeah.
That
But
you need
having
to
always been a
rehearse.
spotter, I didn't learn that. I didn't realise that until quite far into my coaching career, and the ability to help other people spot and carry confidence in their spotting and pass that confidence on to athletes.
Yeah.
Just because it was always a second nature thing, I didn't realise how important it was.
So you mentioned, or you asked the question, do you need that every now and then? I make quite a conscious effort of thinking, before I spot certain things, what could go wrong here?
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Because I think the complacency, like we get autonomous, but you can also become complacent, which is I'm standing underneath the bar for a pack, and like I'm just here because the gymnast wants me here, but nothing's going to happen. And then you actually go, well, X, Y, and Z could happen here. Are you ready for that if it does occur?
All of a sudden she's folded over the bar.
She's folded over the bar, she's missed a hand, or she's caught her toes here, or whatever it might could be, all sorts of different things. And I think it's really healthy.
Well, I had a real life moment.
That question.
I had a real life moment at the British this year with one of my athletes that she was just very unfortunate with how she happened to do a Jaeger. She released too late, hit her feet, but managed to still hold the bar, like hit on her calves.
Yeah.
But in the process of her coming off and release the bar, because I knew that the release point wasn't right, I'd already come to terms in my head in the worst case scenario, if she hit enough of her leg on and didn't get hands on, she was bouncing back and doing a somersault off. And I'd gone through the process of how I might... So it wasn't necessarily prior to it in as much as that scenario you've just said, but in the moment, which then comes down to experience. Was ready to hopefully protect her from the worst outcome.
Of that to know.
Yes. But you've also then got to be brave enough to be putting yourself in those positions.
Yeah, of course.
And
what could go wrong? Am I ready for it?
Yeah.
And the advanced stage of spotting is when you don't have to think about your spotting, so you're able to watch technique and let your hands do what they need to do, as opposed to being so worried about what your hands are doing that you're not actually focusing on what the athlete's doing. So can you tell by the way they're doing a round off flick or backhand spring towards you that they're going to mess up their takeoff angle, because you can already see from the hands they're pushing too long. Good spotters will be able to see the technique and go, right, this is too long, I need to pitch them more. Or this flick looks loopy, crap, I need to get in and do something a bit different. I think that's where the great spotting takes place.
We mentioned a coach that you just recently worked with at Pinewood, Vladimir Podobin, and I remember working with him at Pinewood, and he was a fantastic trampoline spotter, and we'd been fortunate enough to work with coaches at Woking that were great trampoline spotters as well. But I remember him telling me I get more information from what my hands are telling me when I'm on the trampoline than being able to see what they do, and I never got it until like years later, and you can feel those leans, their tendencies to do this, that and the other.
Tension, angles.
It's hand in hand with a bit of honesty as well, though, doesn't it? It's like, I don't know, I didn't see what you did. I was so focused on making sure you were safe. So we'll film it, or we'll go again and then film it, because I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say, I think it's because you didn't tap properly, whatever it is. I don't know. I was hands on making sure you were safe. Did you think about what you were technically supposed to do? Or were you just waiting for me to lift you around?
Do it, for you,
And that's a really nice little like development thing that you can have with your athlete. Is that, I don't know, I'm not doing it for you. I'm just here to make sure you don't die.
Assist you in the skill.
I think it goes back to, like you said, it's a skill, right? So you have to get the reps in.
That's it.
Like,
and don't rush.
Get
if
the
you
reps
can't do
in.
a suit, you do a cartwheel. If you do a cartwheel, you do a cartwheel at speed. You then do a round off. You do a round off to back. Then you do a suit. It's like you just got to break it down and get the reps in until you feel confident. And look, we have an advantage of being, taller. Some of us.
Wow.
Well, I get often say, like,
but
it's all right
he's like 10 times stronger.
You got strength. I'm 6 foot, so and that is an advantage.
I nearly said wide then. I avoided that.
Which we edit that out.
Keep it.
I'm thinking about some of the spotting fails though.
That's what it was. Like from day one, it was like, I don't need you to technically understand these skills. These girls are as big as we are, some of them. We can't lift them the way that you do. So you're like, all right, let's go. I can do that.
Yeah, definitely. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
It's been good. Really enjoyed it. Learned a lot.
I've learned a lot as well.
It's nice to learn about each other, even at this late stage in our friendships.
Yeah, and there's a lot of similarities in our journeys, but also a lot of differences as well, which is why I think that's the magic. Everyone's coaching journey is very, very different, and therefore we end up in a different place, thinking different things, with different goals, different drives. That's the magic of coaching, isn't it? It's the human part. But it has been really good connecting and chatting about it. So, love it.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Gymnastics Growth Show. Now, if you're an ambitious gymnastics coach with a hunger for self-improvement, check out my Gymnastics Growth Academy, where you'll find members from over 40 countries, all accessing my masterclasses, courses, templates, live community calls, exercise libraries, and so much more. It's a program that members have described as life-changing. So why don't you check it out for yourself? Head to gymnasticsgrowth.com to learn more. See you on the inside.